Hi everybody, my name is Elaine and welcome to another episode of Conversations with CAUFP, Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals. Today we're here with Katrina and her business is called Katrina GPS. So when you hear GPS, what do you think of? Navigation. So I'm going to have Katrina tell us a little bit about what she does, how she kind of got into this realm and all of that. Katrina?
Yeah, so first and foremost, thank you for having me here with you. It's
You.
always a pleasure to see you. I love your energy, and I'm glad we got to reconnect. So essentially, my name's Katrina, and I'm known as either the Money Queen or Financial GPS, right? And essentially what that means is being able to navigate and guide people from essentially financial turmoil into a state where they have clarity around their finances. And that's not just individuals, but corporations as well. Just helping them to be able to help their organizations or employees to really invest and take advantage of the income that's coming in. Because essentially, like we know inflation exists, right? And I think in September of this year, it came out as 2.4%, right? And if you have an account, a savings account that's giving you giving you less than 2.4%, you're not even beating inflation, right? So those are things that I help people to understand and trying to help them get their money working for them.
I love that. Actually, right there, what you just said, I don't think a lot of our, constituents as well as Canadians even really pay attention to that, right? Like I think at large people know that, the banks, they have a certain rate that they pay you, but to actually match it or map it to a bigger picture of what the rates are, the inflation rates, and the everything that's happening around us is so important, so vital. So thank you for pointing that out. As we kind of now touched on what's happening within Canada, the inflation, the market, people struggling to make ends meet, and the price of just living costs rising substantially, renting costs, and all of that. Are there any quick tips, any hacks that you've been providing for your clients and maybe share with us today with our constituents about what can they do in light of current situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. And I think the very first thing that individuals should be doing is automating their investments, right?
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. We have the RDSP, so the Registered Disability Savings Plan,
Okay.
right? Many people don't know that this even exists,
Right.
right?
Because people know RRSP.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, just to give you an idea, like for disability, there's physical disabilities like arthritis, Parkinson's, asthma, like severe asthma. And then the mental is like Alzheimer, dementia, just the mental, like anxiety. There's even a song about anxiety, right? So it's something that exists, right? And so that's technically what the RDSP is for. However, a lot of people don't realize, one, that it exists, so they're not being able to get the most out of it, right? And then two is if they do know it exists, they're most likely not maximizing it, right? So for example, a situation is if you are contributing $1,500 a year to that account, the government matches and gives you $3,500. Yeah. So in 1 year, you could have $5,000 in that account just from putting in $1,500.
Okay.
Right? And so with that being said, divide 1,500 by 12 and mentally start like if you have access to that account and mentally start putting aside those funds, like whatever that amount is, right? Even if the monthly amount is too much, right? I think it's like 125 a month. But if the monthly amount seems too much, then do it biweekly, right? And start putting that money aside so that you hit that threshold of the 1,500 and you're able to maximize the grants or the credits that the government's providing, so that you can actually, now you're investing 5,000 instead of 1,500, right? So because like every day we're running around and doing things, and sometimes you can even forget to pay a bill because things are just so, oh my gosh, like every day you're on a like hamster wheel and you might forget things. So starting with automation for me is a number one hack, just because I think give your mind less things to think about,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a lot going on in here,
Yeah.
right? So
I love that. And I think for the Registered Disability Savings Plan, the RDSP, one of the component that is also easy for people to navigate is because it's a form that the government sets up in relations with the banks. You don't have to do much,
Yeah.
right? So the application itself will go through the bank. You will know if you qualify, and given the supplementary documentation that it's going to require. So the benefit sits there now that Katrina has surfaced it for all of us to know that based on your contribution, what the government will also contribute for you and match for you. But the qualification component is relatively easy. You just have to work with your bank, work with somebody who will help you put through the application, put through the criteria, and at least is one other avenue for you to explore, right? And I'm pretty sure, gosh, I don't want to put a stat that I don't know, hasn't been fact checked out there, but having worked in the banks in so long, I don't remember ever having to open that for a client. So just letting you know how unheard of that potentially is in our community, right? So I thank you for letting us know to kind of take away the burden of having to map out the various different payment dates, right? Because certain companies will take a payment on the 1st, certain will be on the 15th, some will be on the 30th. So to actually manage all of that, even as an individual, as a young person, as an adult, all of that could be a lot. So if you're able to automating that and then still responsibly making sure that the account's in good standing, to be kind of giving that extra critical lens, right? I love that. And then what's the one thing I guess
because I think you asked me 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was 1.
Okay, sorry. One. Let's go into the other 2. Yes,
Okay.
sorry.
But before we jump into the other 2,
Yeah.
I did want to speak because there is a misconception that you can only open an RDSP through the banks.
Okay.
I actually help people to open them and manage them, right? So it's really important to have that knowledge because a lot of times, and I'm not sure, well, I'm sure you know because working in the industry, right? But there's so many times where you develop rapport with someone who works at the bank and a year or 2 later down the road, you go into that person and they're no longer there.
Right.
Right? And then you have to figure things out again from scratch because you might not be getting the same level of communication that you used to from that person. Right? So that's why I say like we live in, like it's 2025, we live in a state where there's alternative options than just the big 5, the financial institutions that we are televised to know and to put your money into, right? So I think that's like a really important point for everyone to consider as well. And then the second one, so I'll move on to that one. For me, the second point or hack would be to shop and not spend on Black Friday. Okay, so what do I mean by that?
Hold on. Well, shop but not spend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. You got it?
No.
Okay, I'm going to explain. So essentially, for me, right, I don't believe in buying stuff. Okay. When, for example, my little cousins have birthdays or whatnot, I try to get them an investment versus buying them something that's going to be either donated in 2 months or they've forgotten about and lost interest, right? So what I mean by that is if you're, for example, paying for a subscription every month for $20, okay? And then Black Friday runs around and says, hey, that subscription that you've been paying, we can give you 50% off if you pay annually. Take it. That just saved you $120. Right? Now it eliminates what's coming out monthly and you can now reinvest the difference of that money because you would have been spending it anyway. Right? So that for me is tip number 2, because like let's realistically look at this, and this is a personal example for me. Your phone bills, right? There's so many people that have a phone bill they've been paying for years, okay, and they've never called their their provider to say, hey, like, what are you offering now? Because who wants to sit on the line for 3 hours? Right? However, it's very strategic. Like, I teach all of my clients this. Black Friday comes, you get up early and you're the first on the phone. Get the deal that you can get, right? And so I have a couple of examples, but I'll use mine for just personal. I used to pay, I'd say, I think it was like 120 for like 10 gigs, and I just didn't have the time to call them and just deal with the hassle, right? And then when I started the Black Friday thing is because I realized, one, because I have a registered business, right? You can also, for those who have a registered business, you can also get an additional discount. But what I noticed is when I called, they were able to give me 100 gigs for $50. And I was paying $100 for 20 or 10, right? It's just because during Black Friday sales and whatnot, there's a lot, because they're trying to bring in business, right? So they will offer things at a lower barrier to entry to get you in, and then you're essentially locked in until you decide to change that plan. Unless sometimes there's stipulations, like it's only for 24 months, but that's 2 years of you saving. And then guess what? In 2 years, Black Friday, there's going to be another deal. So you don't lose. Right? So that's my tip number 2.
So identify all of your
every single one of them
and start. Okay.
Figure out what that is.
I'm going home to do that right now. Like, I'm already thinking about all the things that comes out of my.
Because it's next week. Yeah, it's next week. Yeah, or 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right?
Okay. So shop, but not spend.
Yes.
So negotiate and reassess all of your stuff and start to itemize them out and figure out if you can get a better deal.
Yeah.
But don't spend.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Don't be the one in line waiting for the new iPhone.
Yeah.
Right? Don't be the one waiting to buy a TV. There's no point.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, number 3.
Yes.
So for me, I think this is really close to my heart, just building credit and eliminating toxic interest. And then obviously, if you're in that circumstance, just having grace with yourself and being able to forgive yourself. Just because a lot of the times we're easily provided a credit card, but we're not provided the education around what and how to best utilize this card. Right? Because I remember being in college and they were handing out credit cards like it was candy. And so many people ended up signing up, but years later they found themselves down a rabbit hole because you're signing up for something that's 29-30% interest, well, 19 to 30%, right? And you have no idea how it works. Right? So for me, strong credit saves you money for the rest of your life, right? And if you're able to minimize the amount of interest that you're paying on credit cards, you now can reposition that money and start building yourself an emergency fund, right? Because this is the cycle that people get caught in, right? They don't have an emergency fund. So when something happens, like the other day, a nail was in my tire, right? I can't just replace one tire, I had to replace 2. So majority of the public is going to a credit card, right? So that tire that you just changed is not charging you or costing you $400. It's costing you $400 plus interest, right? But if you had an emergency fund to say, hey, when something does come up, you can pull from that, you're not relying on this credit card.
Right. I like what you just said about repositioning.
Yeah.
Because I think when you start looking at like what we've asked our constituents and our, just membership to do is to map out a budget, right? To map out their financial flow. And when you're looking at all the things that you should have quote unquote in place to be financially healthy, right? Emergency fund is there, and not thinking of how you can position potentially interest payments
Yeah.
if you're being savvy about it. So
Yeah.
no, that's now would you so having control over your credit, right, for future stability and all of that, do you have recommendations on how, if they're currently stuck in that cycle,
Yeah.
right, they've already overextended, how do you get yourself to a position of repositioning?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So tangible things that I would say to research and figure out is one is the snowball effect and two is the avalanche effect, right? Two of those, I guess, activities will help you to determine how much interest is going to what credit card, for example, and then how it would work is the highest credit card, right? You would want to get that paid off first, right? So the minimum payment that they always provide you on the credit card, right? Never pay them just the minimum. That'll take you 40 years plus, right? Obviously, depending on what the balance is. But if, for example, this is another trick too, if your minimum payment is $20, pay 25, right? Because that looks like you're exceeding the minimum, right? And then from there, essentially, I think I lost my train of thoughts. Oh, no, the snowball effect and avalanche. Yeah. So you want to maximize paying off the one with the highest interest, right? Obviously, depending on your situation. That's why I say to educate yourself on both, and then you determine what would work for you. But you would just pay about the minimum or a little bit over on your other credit cards and focus all your attention to killing the one with the highest interest, right? Or you could do the opposite and kill the one with the lowest interest, just so that it depends on your personality. Like if you want to have a check off your list to say like, I got it done, and be proud of yourself and be able to celebrate that win, then absolutely do that. It really depends on who you are and how you want to essentially take control of your finances, right? But yeah, those I think are the most practical things. I'm not sure, like a lot of people don't know this about me, but when I was 20, I actually amassed $250,000 in unsecured credit on credit cards. And so just so that you guys understand, unsecured credit means it's not secured against anything, a mortgage, a car, nothing. So at 20, I had access to $250,000 just because I understood the game of credit and I understood that the banks didn't communicate with each other, right? So I took advantage of that. And then additionally, I'm a very calendar focused person. So I learned that approximately every 6 months, you're entitled to a credit limit increase, right? And so I had this in my calendar every 6 months for all of my credit cards to call and say, hey, like, what's going on today? Like, I'm interested in the credit limit increase, right? And so I'd always get it because my credit,
negotiator.
yeah, right? So my credit was always great because I understood that. And then now that minimized my credit utilization, right? Because your credit utilization, they say that it should be about 30%. My rule of thumb is to aim between 10 to 20%. Right?
Okay.
And if you start doing these things, I guarantee you your credit's going to increase.
So I'm just going to kind of deconstruct the credit
Absolutely.
utilization for everybody, which is if you have, let's say, $10,000, maybe other institutions and everyone will tell you to pay 30% of that if you're maxing it out, right? Meanwhile, let's go back. It's not to pay 30%. You should only be using 30% of that 10,000. At any given point, you're going over 50%. That's already going in the negative round in terms of your credibility. So it's not always maxing it out, paying minimum that's doing a detriment to your credit. It's also how you're using it. So the whole utilization perspective. Yeah. So when they tell you, or when Katrina is saying how you utilize your credit, and she's saying try to utilize about 10 to 15%, that actually means if you have a credit limit of $10,000, you should be working with $1,000 to $1,500 on any given month. So that will sustain your credibility. You pay more than the minimum if you can. I always say, if you're capable, you're paying off everything you owe, because that's unnecessary, right? Whatever the percentage, 19.5, 21, 23%, that is unnecessary money to be spent to creditors, right? So I love that. I think it gives our constituents a different perspective of, you know, how do you come out of this? It's actually so funny that you talked about, you know, identifying what is your highest interest item, and then rationally how you pay this. Because literally we talked about this in the first one of our earlier episodes with when we're doing that budgeting audit, right? Like everyone's doing that reflection, because we're asking our constituents to just take a look at your finances, right? Because burying your head under the carpet doesn't help. But it is also human nature in avoidance, right? Because it's much easier to not examine. It's much easier to not really know, to live somewhat in the unknown, which is quite interesting. But we did ask people, you know, as you're starting to itemize and identify all of your ins and outs, where do you sit, right? Do you sit in the green? Do you sit in the red? And how do you get yourself more into the green and stuff like that? So I love that we're coming full circle and talking about the same things again.
Can I just add to what you just said? So for me personally, like when I have clients that come to me and they've been burying their head under the carpet for so long, I'm very blunt with them, and I say that to me that's being very cowardly with your finances, and the reason you're working with me is to step into your courage, right? Because there's so many things that people need assistance with, but they're afraid to voice it. And then I think someone earlier said, then you're internally just struggling and beating yourself up, right? Versus just voicing it and getting that clarity or that assistance, right? Like even just one additional tip before we move on, I'll say, earlier we said that credit cards charge you about 19 to 30%, right? A lot of people don't realize that you can have access to a line of credit that is usually under 10%, right? And you can do a balance transfer. Yes, you'll have to pay for the balance transfer, but what does that look like interest-wise of what you're saving? So instead of paying 2 years at 30%, can you transition that to 2 years at 10% or below, right? How much money are you saving by doing that? And then utilize that knowledge to figure out if it's worth it for you to pay that transfer balance fee and to help to get yourself out of debt and back on track.
No, and some of this, I think what would be helpful, it sounds like a lot of terminology, it sounds like a lot of calculations, and if this may be deemed scary and intimidating for anyone, there are experts, right? Like Katrina's literally saying she has clients and that she's helping them. So I think one of the things that we really have to do is, you know, it's okay to not know, but don't avoid it. And it's okay to not have all the answers and not be able to calculate everything, maybe even, but don't run away. Ask for help, find somebody that you trust, find an expert, and work towards a road of recovery almost, right?
And sorry.
Please.
I was going to say, no, just be careful with who your expert is, because there's situations where I've had clients come to me and people have told them to go bankrupt, right? Instead of actually sitting down and analyzing their finances and not just their finances, but their goals. Because when you go bankrupt, right, 7 to 10 years later, you're still under this umbrella where you have to provide that documentation if you want to get licensed, if you decide, you know, you want to change your life and help other people. Like they'll request that, and you're constantly going back to that. There's other solutions like debt management or consumer proposals, for example, right, that people don't know about. They just know about the word bankruptcy, right? And that can be a lot more damaging than, for example, going into a consumer proposal. So just be very cautious where you're getting that advice from. Like you wouldn't go to a dentist for a surgery, like a back surgery. Like just be mindful of that, right? You're not going to take your pet who needs surgery to like your physical doctor. You're going to take them to the vet, right? So just be very mindful of where that advice and expert advice and information is coming from.
Right. I've actually heard a lot about that recently, where advisors have been, or credit advisors have been telling our Canadian constituents that declaring bankruptcy was a solution, where it literally is a much harder uphill battle, almost like Everest, that you have to climb back from.
Yeah.
So that is absolutely another tip. So, research your trusted source, check out their reviews, and if there are anything, I would say, that they have advised you on, and I think we all have a gut feeling.
Yeah.
Right? If your gut's saying, this sounds a little extreme, or maybe I need to fact check that some more.
Yeah.
Find another resource, right? Like you don't have to, it's not one and done, right? You can always shop your advisory team as well. I think we do the same with doctors and dentists, as you mentioned. I've gone through probably 4 or 5 just to see which one would, suit my needs. And so you don't have to always land with the very first person that seems expert to you.
Yeah.
Right? So I love that.
Yeah.
Thinking back now, looking at where you are, and now you're helping clients with their finances and everything, is there anything that you wish that you had done earlier, or that you had known earlier about, just the financial health and the financial wellness and all of this, the work that you're actually involved with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have conversations all the time, and I think everyone should do this, actually. Just have a conversation with your younger self. Like, just apologize and just say, like, whatever you're not happy with, and just say, like, I'm sorry that, like, we went through that, just so that you can actually feel better and release that stress and stop holding it, right? But although I've been in the financial industry since I was really young, one thing that if I could go back and, like, say, hey, would be to maximize my registered accounts. So what I mean by that is, like, tax-free savings or RRSPs, right? First and foremost, always tax-free savings. That's just my thing.
Yeah.
Because RRSPs, if you need to withdraw, you get a penalty, which means you're going to get charged for that withdrawal, right? So maximizing it. And it's not about just maximizing it. It's really about the timing. So it's not when your financial institution sending you something in the mail saying, hey, tax season's coming, maximize your stuff. It's too late. Why? Because you just missed the compounding effect of the entire year. Your money wasn't compounding. It wasn't there. So now you're going to put it in when they say, hey, like, put it in before whatnot, and then it's getting compounded now, but it's not being applied to your previous tax.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, I would tell my younger self to, one, not only max out my tax-free savings accounts, but to make sure I do it in January. So essentially, if I know, like, the tax-free savings account limit for this year, I believe is $7,000, right? So if you just divide that by 12, or even by 24, bi-weekly, and start saving that amount every time you get a paycheck, or every time, you get a business contract, whatever the circumstance is. And then, so by the beginning of the year in January, you make a lump sum deposit to your tax-free savings account. One, you're laughing because it's no longer on your head. You don't have to worry about it. No one's knocking on your door near tax season when you're already flustered trying to get everything organized for taxes, right? And then 2, you're actually getting the compound effect of your money working for you for that entire year, right? And so it's really important, because one thing I didn't know when I was younger is if you don't understand the rule of compounding, it works against you, right? Which is what we were talking about earlier, like credit cards. That's compounding, it's against you, right? But if you do understand it, you can be on the right side and make your life a lot
Profit.
easier. Yeah. Right. Can
No,
be a profitable transition.
yeah, no, that's for sure something that I think earlier better, right? Like you, if we as a collective all haven't really done the right things to put yourself on the right financial path,
Yeah.
it's okay. I think the first thing is to come to terms with that. It's fine. Let the past go and then move forward.
Yeah.
And from this day, how can you maximize all the things that are provided in our organizational or government structure that can benefit you to set you up for success?
Yeah.
And then really understanding the terminology around compounding, right? Interest, whether it benefits you or in the credit facility, it's still something that it's it's monumental when it's accumulating,
Yeah.
right? Either in the detracting way or in the adding way,
Yeah.
right? So, and then the thing, I mean, given 2025, we're going to 2026, there are numerous platforms. And as you just mentioned, there are so many credit advisors, and you never know where their backing is and what their background is. How would you recommend, like, how does someone start? How does someone weed out the noise of, hey, I'm here to help you, and I'm here to help you, and you see an ad here? I feel like when we put something in Google, then that's everything in like digital marketing that's going to be completely in what you search. So if you're looking for one, how do you find
Navigate.
the right help? How do you weed out the noise? Any advice for our constituents?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, you guys are very lucky to be here because Elaine brought me on. So you guys have me. Obviously, you guys can reach out. But all jokes aside, like I have a mission of helping 10,400 people. And that's just like to help them win in their finances, right? And so I'm always here and open. If you guys do reach out to me, just mention that you know or are affiliated with Elaine, and that's how you kind of came across. And I'll definitely do my best. But I think what's most important is dialing back and like getting rid of what's the word? Like, so for example, a lot of Caribbean households, like you'll hear, oh, don't get life insurance because as soon as you get life insurance, you pass away, right? Like that's a stipulation under like, I've heard it so many times, like with Caribbean parents and whatnot, right? Not realizing the benefits and whatnot of life insurance and how you can actually utilize that. A lot of people don't even know that you can utilize life insurance while you're alive, right? And one of my goals, and I'm sorry, GoFundMe, but I don't want the public to rely on GoFundMe. Like every day you see a new GoFundMe page going up, and 90% of the time it's because no one had life insurance, right? And one of the things about that that's really sad is if people are not able to contribute, right, your goal might not get hit. But with life insurance, it's guaranteed. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, to answer your question, canceling out the noise is just investing in yourself and doing your due diligence, getting credible knowledge and information, resources, and coming up with your own definition of what certain things mean. So what do I mean by that? For example, right? We've gone to school Monday to Friday. We usually go to work Monday to Friday, right? So in someone's mind, consistency might mean doing something 5 days a week, right? But for me, consistency is doing something consistent for a period of time. It doesn't have to be 5 days a week, right? It could be 3 times a week. It could be 2 times a week. It could be once a month. It's still consistency, right? So you have to like do a deep dive on you and figure out what your true beliefs are and stop holding the beliefs that other people have implied or placed into your mind.
Wow. That's something that I think many of us cultured people have to like come to terms with. right? Where the preconceived notion of something or how something is supposed to be can be re-examined.
Yeah.
Right? And really, I guess staying on message here where each of us is different.
Yeah.
Each of us has a, socialized and brought up of a certain way that has made our, understanding of life, of things, of desires, of success to be a certain way.
Yeah.
But breaking down what is uniquely set for each person so that you can understand your constraints and your, where you can potentially play. But I guess one of the things that we should be doing more due diligence on is throwing away perhaps cultural and or notions that are not substantiated, right? So if there are folklore or, things that our cultural background believes in about, what is deemed a good investment, what is deemed a good avenue, what is deemed a good career. The same way we may go against the grain about what is seen as success, it has to be looked at to your finances as well, right? Like, because what is success to each individual and what is wealth, what is financial health, it all looks different, right? I mean, the bar is set at you're not struggling, right? You're not living paycheck to paycheck and or paying extremely high interest to undeserved creditors and all of that. That I would say is the bare bar. But outside of that, once you've gotten to a place of, okay, you can invest and or you can save, we need to do more like, whether it be research and just do yourself more of a investment, right? To put in the work, to identify where your shortcomings are. If there's lack of understanding and lack of knowledge, seek out the professionals, but do away with maybe, hearsay and cultural beliefs and some of that where it might not have a positive connotation, right? So, okay, no, I think there are so many things that we need to be transparent to ourselves about. I think we're staying very consistent on message here throughout our podcast, which is you need to hold yourself accountable. You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know anything about your own finances, start. You got to start somewhere. Let go of the past, let go of the guilt, let go of what could be or should be in a comparative narrative, right? And just start with your own journey towards financial health. Right?
Yeah. It's very important, especially what you just said, that last part, because when I realized I had to turn and like take control of my finances and like be responsible, I actually wrote a letter to myself. And I just, as I said earlier, like just saying, I'm sorry for how things went in the past, but I now know better and will do better, right? Even just that, like writing that physically, paper, pen. I'm not talking about texting it on your phone or emailing it to yourself, typing on a computer, like physically sitting with yourself and being able to forgive yourself for not knowing, because we were never taught this stuff in school, right? I have, obviously, I feel personally there's a reason for that, because if you don't know, right, then everything's a business, right? So if you don't know how to handle 30% interest, then person A will win because they're getting and receiving the interest, right? So that's just my personal belief, but just forgive yourself for not knowing, because it was never brought to your attention. It was never taught. In some households, it's like taboo to talk about your finances, to talk about money, right?
Many cultures.
Yeah. But like, and so for me, I'm very spiritual, right? And one thing that I did notice is, I'm going to say a higher power, if it's whoever you guys believe in, but his goal for us is to duplicate what we have so that we're not pouring from an empty cup. Right? It's an abundance mindset. And you can only help your neighbor if you're okay. right? Just like I think we said earlier, putting on the mask on the airplane, right, before you help someone else. You can't do that if your cup is empty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So it's your responsibility to get on top of your finances and like let's work together and get that done.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Katrina.
Yeah.
Thanks for the conversation and thanks for being with us today. And we'll see you next time. CAUFP.